Okay, I don't need to start over again though, do I? I am not Reverend Patty. That's the bottom line. And she and Mary Lou have COVID, so they are not here. Actually, before we start the scripted service, I thought I would do a little bit of Day of the Dead talking, especially about altars, in case after this service you feel like putting up your own Day of the Dead altar. Now, as you mostly know, Day of the Dead is a Mexican tradition that we've kind of borrowed up here in the United States, but it has Aztec roots. And then the Catholics came along and melded those Aztec traditions with All Souls and All Saints Days. So a lot of the stuff that goes on the altars are a combination of this, but the altars are put up to honor and remember those who have gone before. And this is considered a joyous occasion. This isn't something all morbid. So I wanted to explain a little bit about what's up here and then remind you all that Karen Hagberg put together a wonderful, beautiful altar like she does each year. And we invite you to write the name of somebody that's on your mind that you wanted to honor this year and leave the name on the altar back there. 4 things usually will go on an altar that represent the 4 elements. So we have a candle representing fire, and this is also the candles will lead the souls back to earth and back to home again. This time of year is considered a time when there's a thinning of the veil, that there are it's a time when spirits can return more easily. In our more Celtic traditions, that was a frightening time, but for the Mexicans this was a wonderful time to greet people again. Okay, so we have a candle, we have salt representing earth, and this is a purifying agent. Fruit on the table is also representative of earth. Fire, earth, water. Somewhere here I have a glass of water. There it is. Water. What am I missing? Earth, fire, water, air. The papel picado, this colorful paper on the front, flutters in the air, and again that motion of the wind fluttering the paper lets the spirits know it's time to come back and visit. There will always be a photo of the loved one, often a cross representing the Christian aspects, beverages and food that the people really liked in their lifetime, and marigolds or flowers of any kind, but specifically marigolds. These were sacred to the Aztecs. And the strong odor of marigolds, again, is a thing that invites people back and leads them to where they need to go. So that's just a little bit about an altar for Day of the Dead and the altar that Karen created for us. Let us ring the peace bowl today for peace on earth. Let us open with the beauty of the silver moon last night, the earth under our feet, the yellow and red leaves of autumn, the neighborhoods that are filled with playful skeletons and ghosts. In the tradition of Day of the Dead, may we remember our connections with past members of the congregation who are represented on the altar in the back, lovingly put up by Karen. And as we recall our own ancestors, let us recall the traditional names of the 4 groups that make up the Yavapai we know today: the Wipukepas, the Tokipayas, the Cuevcapayas, and the Yavapai. Let us think of their ancestors and our own. Let us remember love which holds us all, a love that has no labels, as we watch this video. Let us think of their ancestors and our own. Let us remember love which holds us, a love that has no labels as we watch this video. Let us think their ancestors and let us remember love which holds us, a love that has no labels as we watch this video. Their ancestors and let us remember
And I can't change,
that has no labels. Watch this video.
even if I tried, even if I wanted to. And I can't change, even if I tried, even if I wanted to.
Their ancestors
My love, she keeps me warm. And I can't change, she keeps me warm. She keeps me warm. Even if I can't change, even if I tried, even if I wanted to. My love, she keeps me warm. She keeps me warm. She keeps me warm. She keeps me warm. And I can't change, even if I tried, even if I wanted to. My love, she keeps me warm. She keeps me warm.
When we were a motorized bicycle company, they said you'll never be more than that.
She keeps me warm. She keeps me warm.
What did they say
Keeps me
next?
warm.
Honda, the power of dreams.
My heart doesn't see race. Love has no
How would
age
you
limit.
like to completely silence your mind?
We are neighbors and best friends.
And I know you
We
came
all have
here to
different
have better
religions,
thoughts,
but we have
not no
universal
thoughts,
love as
right?
well.
but wouldn't it be nice to just shut them off
Love is love.
on demand
Our family is no less
in a way that
than any other family.
creates just complete being, just perfect wellness on demand and in a way that lasts? I figured out how to do this, and I'll teach you the basics today.
Well, interesting start to everything today. Good morning and welcome to Granite Peak Unitarian Universalist Congregation. I am Fred Krapps, your default worship associate today. We extend a warm welcome to all, and we are glad you're able to join us and hope you are in good health. And if Mary Lou and Patty are watching today, I send my condolences to you, and hopefully you get over this quickly. This is the mission statement of our congregation. We are a compassionate spiritual community that celebrates diversity, nurtures the personal and spiritual growth of all ages, shares our gifts, promotes justice for all, and serves the world we live in. Please join us after the service for socializing in small groups in the sanctuary. And if you're viewing the service on Zoom, and how many did we say we had on Zoom today? 18 people. Okay. Join them in the breakout rooms after the service. And if you're joining us for the first time, please check us out on our website at prescottuu.org or for more information about us. And if you're here in person, there'll be time after the service to introduce yourself, and please stay and chat with a few members afterwards and join us for coffee. We want to thank our pianist, Lena Huben, who has also filled in very quickly for Mary Lou, who is not going to be here with us today. And I want to thank Russ Erickson, who's going to be leading us in the hymns. and Deidre Swartz back on the control panel. Yes, Deidre. And so, and hopefully we get this all under control, do we? And thank all our volunteers, and particularly those that are in charge of coffee. For without coffee, we couldn't be UUs, could we? In addition to the announcements on the screen that were on there before and will be on there after the service, and you can read them in the weekly Peak newsletter and on our website and Reverend Patty's videos. Sandra, our children's faith development coordinator, is teaching ages 5 and older across the street at our faith development building. We begin our service in the Unitarian Universalist tradition of lighting the chalice. Our chalice lighter this morning is Tom Burrows. Now, where did my chalice lighting go? Sometimes my older thumbs just cannot take these things apart. At this darkening time of year, our thoughts turn to things past, of life retreating, to those who are no longer with us, to ancestors of blood and ancestors of spirit. Images come to our minds of dear companions who once graced our lives, loved ones whom we miss, persons whose lives made an impact on our lives, and of all those who were here contributing, caring, and are now gone. As we light this chalice, we honor and remember those who have passed into the mystery. Their brightness lives in our vision, their courage lives in our commitments, and their love continues to bless the world through us.
Buenos dias. Good morning again. I forgot to put the sugar skulls on the altar also. So as we move closer to Dia de los Muertos, which is on November 1st, do you find yourself remembering those who are gone? Everyone in this room has experienced loss. This is our common ground throughout the world. We are mourning all over the earth, in Korea, in Ukraine, Russia, Nigeria, and so many places. People are mourning the loss of those they loved. On this common ground, may we find healing in coming together, gathering. We are not meant to go through this alone. Loss, which can be so personal, bids us gather. For those present in the sanctuary, let us rise in body and spirit and sing, gathered here. And I'd like to request that we go through the words twice.
Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, Spirit draw near. Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, Spirit draw near.
Please join me in saying the words of our covenant. Love is the doctrine of this congregation. Quest for truth, sacrament, service, and prayer. Dwell together. together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve others in community, us doing covenant together. Let us breathe together and see the joys and sorrows that are on our hearts and minds. We hold the people of Seoul, Korea, so many families who are mourning the over 150 young people who died in a district of Seoul celebrating Halloween. And we continue to hold Ukraine, Russia, Belarus, and Poland, the tragedy and the courage that the people there display. And we hold members of our congregation. Former member Pocahontas Gertler is mourning the loss of her beloved Jean. Tomorrow, Karen Denny will be having surgery. Sharon Watt is awaiting cardiac surgery on November 22nd. Maria Fleury will have surgery this week. And Nolene Patterson is also facing difficulties. Let us hold them in the light of our community, along with Ken Briefer, Sally and Bill Richards, Kat Euler, Dan Reardon, and Eric Day, and also, of course, Reverend Patty and Mary Lou Prince, that they recover quickly. Please say the names of those who are on your hearts and minds, and I will repeat them into the microphone. And for those of you in the far back, please say it very loudly because I can't hear very well. And those on Zoom, please write the names in the chat. Noel Elliott. Maggie Moshak. Dino Makowski. John Hunt. Height, I'm sorry, thank you. George Allen. Powers, George Powers. Annette Olson. Sean and Barb McHugh. Tom Petty. Pettit. Tom Petty hasn't died yet. Okay, I'm not seeing anybody in the chat yet. Suze Recitar, and I'm sorry I missed the earlier ones. Shirley Campbell. Marianne. Larry and Phil Garrett. Judith Puff. Puff. She knows who we're talking about. Okay, thank you. I'm sorry? Thea Park. Now let us enter into a time of meditation. If there is an event which moves you to joy or concern, hope or gratitude, I invite you to come forward, forming two lines to the bowls, and drop a pebble from the dishes into our communal water as an affirmation of our connection to one another and to the world. And I will start with putting two in for Mary Lou and Reverend Patty. Please join with me in singing Walking with You.
As we prepare to take the offering this morning, let us embrace the feeling of connection and community that we have when we gather here each week. Let us remember that this congregation and its programs are supported by your generosity. We also give back to the greater community through our Caesar Support Program. This month's recipient is Granite Dells Preservation Foundation. Please read about them in your order of service. To give online, go to prescottuu.org/giving. On the bottom left-hand side, click on Support Granite Peak to contribute. The link is also available in the chat on this video. So please enjoy our offertory music, Standing in Silence by Mary Lou Prince. Are we doing something different? Yes. Oh, okay. So we didn't get this until very late this morning. Yeah. So will that be also the case later on? The second one by Mary Lou is going to be a different one as well. So did everybody hear that? Elegy by, who was it by? By Massenet. Okay. Do you guys? We acknowledge the Spirit, we acknowledge the generosity of the Spirit expressed through this offering. What is given in love is received in gratitude. Blessed be. Our reading today comes from The Wild Edge of Sorrow, Rituals of Renewal, and the Sacred Work of Grief by Francis Weller. Grief and love are sisters, woven together from the beginning. Their kinship reminds us that there is no love that does not contain loss, and no loss that is not a reminder of the love we carry for what we once held close.
Reverend Patty titles her message, Learning from the Day of the Dead. And remember, when I read I, it's Reverend Patty speaking. In this election time, this time in our nation of such division, not the first time, not the last time, but a quite divided time, we often speak of our search for common ground. As I was writing this from the bench outside a retreat center, relaxing after a massage that I hoped would begin healing my back, a worker at the center put a little golf cart full of cleaning supplies in reverse by mistake and slammed into some large decorative rocks and then just drove away. A toilet plunger left as decoration on one of the tallest rocks. I thought of mistakes I had made that I wished that I could drive away from. When we make mistakes, we are sharing common ground. The hardest common ground we humans share is death. And sometimes these two coincide when our mistakes result in death. One glorious autumn day on a walk in Salt Lake City, we crossed paths with an accident that had just happened. A woman had run over someone's dog. She was distraught. In that moment, I didn't think. I simply reached out my arms and held a sobbing stranger for a few minutes. We were standing on common ground. And I have to mention here that there are some people for whom being held is not healing. We should remind ourselves that even on this common ground of being human and losing life, our needs are different. Some of you may remember watching Jacqueline Kennedy go through the death of her young husband, the President of the United States, as she had to as the First Lady of the United States. I don't know how she did it. Some of you may even remember the death of Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and more of us remember George Floyd, Queen Elizabeth, and Ruth Bader Ginsburg. In some countries, if you lose a spouse, you are marked forever with wearing clothes of mourning. When we traveled in Europe in my childhood, I remember the Italian villages full of older women in black. Looking back, I think of all the women who lost their husbands and sons in World War II. But we don't have to return to World War II to find grief. At the end of January, we will be reaching the 3rd year mark of a worldwide pandemic, with human losses which have touched us all, friends, relatives who have died or are suffering from the long-term effects of COVID-19. Of the 97.5 million confirmed cases in the United States, over 1 million have died. And in many developing countries, the confirmed cases are estimated to represent only 1/10 of those who actually died. These years will exist in our lives, in the life of this community, like those stripes in sedimentary rock that signal a natural disaster like a flood. We are forever changed by the grief that has surrounded us in ways I hope that we will understand someday. For now, we gather together knowing sorrow, having it interwoven into our lives. I wonder what marks you hold from this time. How have you experienced death, this common ground that marks us forever, as if we are left with tattoos? My brother, who lost his wife in his late 40s, had her favorite flowers tattooed, literally tattoos, as a sleeve on his arm, a painful reminder and permanent of his love and loss. Love is another common ground that we share with living things. I think that love is what we are sharing on walks around our neighborhood when we talk about our dogs, the happiness that Daisy's cancer is in remission, and the sadness when a dear animal dies. The only lucky pet owners are those who love parrots, who can live for 80 years. In Japan, when people would come to our house and meet our cat, Louis is our first dog, a common story would emerge. I had a dog in childhood, but when they died, it was too sad. I couldn't bear having another pet. When we lose a being that we love, our hearts can feel as if they are breaking. And when we cry, like when Lou and I think of Mary Lou's mother who died 8 years ago, we feel a heady mixture of sadness and joy. We quickly smile, thinking that she would love having tears shed for her and for what our tears say about our relationship when she died. The way we mourn reveals the love we shared at the end of her life. Sorrow is a sign of love. Sometimes we are blessed, as Peter Eldridge, with a mother who lived 103 years, and he put a lot of effort into that blessing. He used those years leading up to Janer's death to open his heart and learn. We are not all blessed with 103 years. Often death comes in the middle of a conversation or even before a conversation can happen. I wonder about that iconic Jacqueline Kennedy, her husband assassinated so young, 2 young children to care for. And later we realized that there was so much more. How did she reckon with his affairs and all the other more daily kinds of conversations that stopped on that fateful drive through the streets of Dallas? All around us, we watch and experience that very human miracle of grief, helping us come to terms with death and move closer to opening our hearts to love again. I wonder how many of you have the memory of someone whose death or loss still grips your heart. There is an adage that time heals all things. I think that time heals many things, and to heal grief, we are often called to be more proactive. When the people we love die suddenly, or even if we have lots of time to say goodbye, we can be caught in the midst of a conversation. When my parents died in a car accident, just as my sister and I were heading to see them, my siblings and I were left with lots of unfinished business. Knowing that I could not step around grief because it would appear in other places in my ministry, I took a deep dive into those waters. Each day I began my writing with, "Dear Mother and Dad, can we talk? Where are you? I love you. I hope that you knew that." I wept and told them what was on my mind. I broached questions that would have been difficult in person. I raged and mourned for months, my grief intertwined with love. In the midst of it all, poems of sorrow and healing emerged. Through our conversations, picking up old ones and starting new ones, we came to some peace. Grief became gentler, softer, less like a tsunami. I wonder if you have unfinished business with someone you have loved who is gone, either physically in death or emotionally, psychologically, due to all those other reasons we humans separate from one another. I invite you to write letters and let out any grief that is remaining that may be keeping you from the happiness that is also our birthright. We need courage to go through that grief that may stand between us and joy. Faithful grief can heal our hearts and open them to that love that can shine through grief, that leads us on that path into the forest, and that eventually wakes within us as a glimmer of hope, of joy, of a heart that is no longer broken. I close with the ending of one of the poems that emerged as I worked through grief. When her abdomen and chest cavities were too small to contain their grief, she learned from the robins to puff herself up and sing. She found nests abandoned in the forest and made her bed alone, adjusting herself for comfort, resisting disinfectant for it stopped the healing of the sores. She let the leaves and twigs press into the open wounds and become part of a new body, skin finally whole, twigs taking root. And this year, a plum branch burst into bloom. Amen, and may it be so. Let us sing together a song that calls to our ancestors and those we have lost who are all around us. You say Barnwell's Breaths. It's number 101 in the hymnal.
Listen more closely to things than to beings. Listen more often to things than to beings. 'Tis the ancestor's voice when the fire's voice is heard. 'Tis the ancestor's voice on the voice of the waters. Wish, wish. Those who have died have never, never left. The dead are not under the ground. They are in the rustling trees. They are in the groaning woods. They are in the crying grass. They are in the mourning rocks. The dead are not under the ground. So listen more often to things than to beings. Listen more often to things than to beings. 'Tis the ancestor's breath when the fire's voice is heard. 'Tis the ancestor's breath in the voice of the waters. Wish, wish. Those who have died have never, never left. The dead have a pact with the living. They are in the woman's breast. They are in the wailing child. They are with us in our homes. They are with us in the crowd. The dead have a part with the living. So listen often to things than to beings. Listen more often to things than to beings. 'Tis the ancestor's breath when the fire's voice is heard. 'Tis the ancestor's breath in the voice of the waters. Zoom, wish, wish, zah.
May we not allow the fear of loss keep us from loving. May we love abundantly and then call on each other and our inner courage to be faithful to that time of mourning. May we find wholeness and joy. Amen, and may it be so. At this point, we would have had a postlude by Marianne Prince. We'll have to wait till later to hear her composition. I don't know if you have a postlude or not. You do. Okay, and what do we have for a postlude this morning? Ballad. And thank you again for stepping in. Tom, if you want to come back up now for extinguishing the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. I now invite you to take as much time as you wish to visit with your friends and visitors. Patty likes to leave us with a question to discuss. And this week, her question is, who would be on your Day of the Dead ofrenda, the altar, and why? While we greet each other in person, those on Zoom can go ahead and greet each other in the chat rooms.